and I'm getting mighty tired of your trifling ways and of listening to that jackass Bray.
50-50 dynamics. In a society that values packaging over substance, Hyena talks of the merry band of idiots. The topic of 50-50 echoes throughout society, without the understanding that 50-50 pertains to an individual in the sense of 50% light and 50% dark, 50% right, 50% wrong, and the balancing of the two. That is the acceptance of knowing oneself and knowing when to utilize either side according to the goal. Sometimes logic rules, and others, the unzipping and removing of the gentleman's or lady's side to gain a favorable outcome is key. That said, let's dive into the dynamics of 50-50 regarding relationships. It is believed that relationships are 50-50. Of course, they are not. I am using myself as an example to edify all points stated. I've noticed in many relationships where I was more logical than the female I was dealing with, and she was more childlike. Other times, she had my back more than I had my own. When life threw a wrench into the system, she got me back on track, and vice versa when applicable. It didn't mean that we didn't know how to do that for ourselves, but having a brief lapse of self in a moment, let's say uprooting, it did not mean we weren't whole, but we had forgotten the overall mission of understanding the tradition of change, and it mostly comes from within. One must be 100%, not 50%, to possess enough umph to share with our mate. Coming with a mere 50% into anything will leave one utterly depleted relatively fast. Possessing character carries a massive weight, and here's proof. As I reflect, I have worked with many children in adult bodies, both males and females. These were the people who were supposed to be running a business collectively. Instead, it was a gaggle of chiefs without any Indians. A bunch of bosses and no leaders, except one person. That person was me. And I wasn't in a position of power when it came to making business decisions for the business. Just a cog in the wheel, so to speak. Yet those patronizing the business viewed me as the only reasonable person within the managing parties. Why? Because the managing team is or was 50% or less individually. They figured that banding together in a pit, like snakes do, would make them whole or 100%. This is and will never be true. Even when I sensed their lack and gave insight, they looked at me as if I knew nothing, and soon followed their behavior in that same vein. Meanwhile, the business patrons would rather deal with me and my 100% than the managing crew of 50% or less. This was articulated ad nauseum, to the point that my phone kept pinging with assistance calls due to the lack of management from the group of chiefs. These are the type of people who will take things out on others because they are unhappy personally. See the screen. This is a screenshot from an artist in the aforementioned business. It starts off, my name is The Artist, and I had rented a studio space at The Business in February 2025. It was my first time renting a studio space for my art practice, and I did not know what to expect. Now, 6 months later, my lease is up, and now I know what I do not want from a studio space. During my entire time there, I felt like a nuisance to the management of the building. I continuously had to advocate for myself as the studio space was in constant need of repair and fixing. Many of these repairs management had promised to fix before I had moved in, but as time moved on, months would pass and nothing would happen. I found myself more and more frustrated with the way things were run, but through it all, there was one person who made me feel welcome in the space, and that was the janitorial staff, Rasta Kilbomani of Rastaz Reality. Any issues that management would fail to fix, he would step in and try to resolve, even though he is no way responsible for the proper upkeep of my space. My lights were not under my control, and he offered a lighting rig to help. When a tenant had moved out and left a bunch of art supplies in the space, he let me know right away and let me take what I wanted, and even offered to help me move some things into my space. When I wanted to move a heavy AC unit, he offered to help. He would pop his head in from time to time to make sure I was doing okay and if I needed anything. He gave me his personal cell number to hit him up if I ever needed anything. Rasta Akil Bomani of Rastaz Realities made me feel welcome in an art studio building that I feel is overall very unwelcoming. Rasta Akil Bomani of Rastaz Realities even asked about my art practice and engaged with my art and commissioned me for a piece. Rastaz Kilbomani of Rastaz Realities made me feel seen and a member of a community. To the management of the building, I felt like someone who was paying them $600 a month for a lackluster space. I feel Rastaz Kilbomani of Rastaz Realities is worth more than he is given here, and I hope in the future the management figures out their priorities and makes the space somewhat better because I believe it has potential because a person like Rasta Kilbomani of Rastaz Realities is there. There can be a bustling artist community at the business, but in order for that to happen, I think management should be more present and caring of the space, as I feel Rasta Kilbomani of Rastaz Realities is. I am moving my studio space to another business in another area, and while I will not miss the business, I will miss the friendship that I made with Rasta Kilbomani of Rastaz Realities, aka Tank. Sincerely, the artist. The point of the video is to articulate that everyone must be 100% to have anything, if needed, to assist another. This stands in all relationships, personal and business. Otherwise, it is like having a blaring horn with a blinding bright neon sign stating, I'm broken, we're broken and unhealed, thus comfortable with groupthink and herd mentality. Downfall is immediately imminent when in those energies. And that's the reality.
GTTC.